Hello everybody, this is JD. I don't know when I'm going to upload this one, but this video is going to be about something that I've heard on the news. I've heard all over the place during the election. They were yelling, voting is a privilege, it's a privilege, it's a privilege. You know? And I was comparing our voting this year of the election of the new president compared to other countries that I have studied through the years. Being a young man, born June 4th, 1948, so now you all know how old I am, I grew up during quote-unquote the Cold War times. And I was taught about all the different political governments of the world. You might remember some of them, called the Soviet Union, the Red Chinese, under Saddam Hussein, Iraq, the current situation in Iran, and a lot of other dictatorial governments. And one thing that made us different from theirs, very small thing. I mean, in Russia, everyone got to vote for the premier or the president. Everyone got to vote. There's no question about it. In Saddam Hussein's Iraq, everyone got to vote. I mean, 100%. They had higher percentages of people voting than we did in this country. The Soviet Union, I said yes, they did. In China, everyone gets to vote. In Iran, everyone gets to vote. Matter of fact, in some of these countries with its dictators, it is a right. You have to vote. Where in our country, it's a privilege. But here's where it differs. Once the privilege in our country is given you to vote, you have the right, not the privilege, the right to vote for the candidate of your choice, your choosing. Except that didn't happen this election. That was changed. That's the real change in this election. You see, the way it works in the Soviet Union and in China and a few other dictatorial countries is that the political party chooses the candidate. Like in the Soviet Union, they would actually have the whole political parties would hold elections. And all the members of the party would vote for who they wanted to run for the national president. Now, once the political party decided it, then everyone got to vote for that candidate. But it was actually selected by the political parties. And they would choose the candidates that select their parties. Different parts of the Soviet Union would choose different people, and then they all would be voted upon, and the one who drew most of the political party's votes is the one who got to run for the national election. And nobody else. You couldn't write in anybody else. You couldn't anybody else. Now you say, oh, well, in this country it's different because we have two political parties that get to choose. Well, when you really study the Soviet Union, you find out that they had several political parties. Sometimes for the premier, they may be 4 or 5 people, not 2. But we're different because, well, let's take the state of Oklahoma. Okay? I had notified all the states prior to the Democrat Party and the Republican Party picking their nominee that I was going to be a presidential candidate. And the first letters I got back is, oh, well, you can't because you passed the deadline. But yet the political parties had not yet chosen their president, their candidate. So I couldn't get on the ballot. So I had to be a write-in in all 50 states, and I said you have to demand it in some. Oklahoma is one. Well, I wasn't on the ballot, and there was no write-in, so no one could actually really vote for me. They could only vote for the people that the state of Oklahoma selected for you to vote for. You did not have your right to choose the candidate of your choice. Though the privilege of voting was granted to you, your right to choose the candidate of your choice was not. You had to choose a candidate that was chosen for you by political parties. Yeah. Wait a minute. Isn't that the way it was done in the Soviet Union? Yes, it is. Now, I ended up with a lot of discarded votes that people wrote in, also because I did not have a vice president. Now, I've gone through reading the Constitution, and it doesn't say you have to have a vice president, or it doesn't say you have to choose your electoral delegates prior to winning that state. It does say you get to choose your electoral delegates, and you should have a vice president so that they're both a party. But if you don't have a vice president, according to the Constitution, then it goes to the way it's written in the main body of the Constitution. But it doesn't say you have to. So my votes were all discarded, not because of something that has to be, but because it's implied. So, looking at everything, and looking at that way it went, I kind of, in my whole life, from the time I started becoming aware of voting and how important it is, to now, has never seen such a controlled election as this. The controlled candidates, who you can and cannot vote for on a national presidential, election. I have never seen one like this. I have never remembered an election where there was only two candidates. Now, I have seen a third party, and I have seen where there's a bunch of independents, but never where there was just two that the political parties had selected. And that's who you got to vote for. Now, yes, they had some of the independents on some of the ballots, and they had to write in some states where you got to write me in, and they discarded it. But the bottom line is, did we really have a free national election? What did we really have? What kind of election was it? A lot of excitement over Obama, and I'm glad he won. Because it proves the one thing I have always said. If you get out of your ghettos, what you see there is not real. What is real is outside those ghettos. When you get out of those, you will see that those prejudices that you have are not real. And Obama proved it. But I got the option of seeing it because I was in the military. I got to go across this country, up and down the whole East Coast. I never was stationed west of the Mississippi, but awfully close to the Mississippi and up and down the East Coast. And I joined the military in 1968. And I got to travel around the world. And other than the Soviet Union, Russia, then the old Iraqi government under Saddam Hussein, the government in Iran, and the government in Red China, I have never seen such an election as controlled as this, other than those by true, absolute dictators. This was a very, very controlled election. Think about it. Do we need political parties to tell us who we can and cannot vote for? Thank you. This is JD. Have a nice day.